President Ibrahim Traoré, the interim leader of Burkina Faso, a landlocked country in West Africa. A former military officer, President Traoré rose to power in 2022 after a military coup, pledging to restore stability and security to his nation. Known for his calm demeanor and subtle yet firm leadership style, President Traoré has gained international attention for his unexpected yet powerful encounters, including one shocking incident with a flight attendant that will leave you questioning bias and discrimination. Here are 4 notable iconic moves and policies of President Ibrahim Traoré. 1. Anti-jihadist military operations. President Traoré launched aggressive military campaigns against jihadist groups in Burkina Faso, including ISIS and Al-Qaeda affiliates. His efforts led to significant territorial gains and reduced terrorist attacks on civilians, ordering elite military units to recapture strategic towns like Djibo and Satenga from jihadists. 2. Economic Recovery Plan, PNDS. President Traoré introduced the National Economic and Social Development Plan (PNDS), aiming to revive Burkina Faso's economy through infrastructure development, roads, bridges, dams, agriculture modernization, mining sector reforms, allocating 60% of national budget to PNDS initiatives in his first year in office. 3. Anti-corruption crackdown. President Traoré declared war on corruption, establishing an independent anti-corruption agency, special courts for corruption cases, asset seizure laws for convicted officials, ordering the arrest and prosecution of former President Marc Christian Kabor's ministers accused of embezzlement. 4. Regional Security Cooperation, Accord de Ouagadougou. President Traoré brokered the Ouagadougou Accord, a regional security pact with neighboring countries Niger, Mali, Benin to share intelligence on terrorist groups, conduct joint military operations, enhance border security. Hosting the inaugural Accord Summit in Ouagadougou, uniting West African leaders against terrorism. Traoré's rise to power in September 2022 marked Burkina Faso's second coup in 8 months, signaling the military's fraying patience with civilian governance amid rampant insecurity. Since then, his regime has faced multiple alleged coup attempts, including a destabilization plot foiled in November 2023. President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso has faced numerous assassination attempts of at least 18 since taking office. In September 2022, here are some of the known attempts. January 13, 2024 assassination attempt. The assassination of Ibrahim Traoré was planned by the plotters for the evening of 13 January when the 34th Africa Cup of Nations CAN match was about to kick off. Sources tell Africa Initiative the conspirators were planning to carry out the bombing at the captain's residence in the center of Ouagadougou, the country's capital. They also had a backup assassination planned for the 14th of January, involving an attack on a government motorcade. Burkina Faso's intelligence services intercepted the plotters' communications in advance and foiled the assassination attempt. Agents from the Transitional Government Security Service arrested the rebels. African Initiative sources have not confirmed this information, but it is likely that some of the plotters were ambushed by a false motorcade. The Burkinabe intelligence services are currently investigating the coup, where one of the main suspects is the uncle of Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, a pro-French colonel who took part in the 2022 coup d'etat, was briefly the country's leader, and then was overthrown in October of that year by Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Damiba's uncle, according to AI sources, is funding opponents of Traoré's regime, hoping to cause destabilization in the country and seize power. This version is also supported by the fact that a relative of disgraced President Damiba took his family out of the country on January 11th, a few days before the attempted assassination of the current Traoré leader. It is specified that the relatives traveled under Togolese passports. The AI interlocutor added that on the eve of the failed coup, armed mercenaries arrived in the neighboring state of Togo to join the operation to overthrow the Burkinabe president. This is not the first attempt to eliminate President Traoré. What has happened shows that the life of the Burkinabe leader is in danger. This problem could be solved by an early increase in the Russian contingent of the African Corps, which helped the Sahel country to fight against jihadist groups. But unfortunately it is difficult to defend against a sophisticated assassination attempt. Burkina Faso's current team of rulers are proponents of Sankarism, the socialist ideas of state transformation aimed at achieving true independence for African states that were originally promoted by Thomas Sankara, he has been called the most honest president in the world. He came to power in the country when it was still called the Republic of Upper Volta as a result of a popularly supported military coup in 1983. Sankara ruled until 1987, when he was assassinated in a new coup d'etat by Blaise Compaoré. Traoré's team, young special forces officers who defended Burkina Faso from terrorism, are quite popular in a country tired of corruption, instability, and neocolonialism. At the same time, they are expected to deliver early results in the economy and improve living standards. Besides, even moderately socialist ideas of Sankarism are not very popular among the pro-French elite, a number of top army officials, and bureaucracy. That is why the current government of Burkina Faso needs Russian assistance not only to ensure victory over terrorism, but also to carry out effective economic reforms, create new jobs, and develop resources on equal terms. In addition, the problem Traoré's entourage must address is the early mobilization of his supporters, working with young leaders and public opinion. Unfortunately, too many members of Burkinabe society are used to living under a non-colonial model with an endless succession of pro-French dictators. Hopefully, however, the Sankara supporters in power will be able to build a new Burkina Faso, and their alliance with their neighbors will prove effective. Ambush on presidential convoy October 2024. Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso's military prosecutor Friday said 3 soldiers were arrested and charged with plotting against the ruling junta. A statement released by Burkina Faso's strongman CPT, Ibrahim Traoré, said investigators received a tip-off last month about soldiers and former soldiers working in intelligence, who were scouting out homes and other locations used by key figures in the military government. Their goal was to destabilize the transition, added Traoré's statement, in reference to a term used to describe military rule ahead of the promised elections. Investigations by the West African nations junta led to the arrest of 3 soldiers that were detained by an examining magistrate. Major Alphonse Zorma, Burkina Faso's military prosecutor, said the arrested soldiers face several charges, among them involvement in a military plot, breach of military orders, plotting against state security, criminal association, and endangerment. The 3 were named as Warrant Officer Windin Malik Kabor, SGT, Brice Ismail Ramd, and former Corporal Sami Da, who had previously been convicted in a plot against the state in 2015. They unequivocally admitted the facts, said Major Zorma. Armed gunmen ambushed Traoré's convoy in Ouagadougou, the capital city, using heavy weaponry and explosives. Although Traoré escaped unharmed, multiple members of his security team were injured. Here are the details on the assassination attempts on President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso. Thwarted coup and assassination plot December 2023. Military leaders thwarted a coup attempt aimed at Traoré, although specific details about the assassination plot were not made public. Burkina Faso foils coup plot against military leader. Burkina Faso's military government on Monday announced it had thwarted a major plot to overthrow junta leader Captain Ibrahim Traoré, alleging the conspiracy involved plans to assassinate the head of state and was orchestrated from neighboring Ivory Coast. The claims have intensified long-standing speculations about repeated attempts to target Traoré, who seized power in a 2022 coup. Security Minister Mahamadou Sana disclosed on state television that the alleged plotters, comprising active and former Burkinabe soldiers collaborating with terrorist leaders, planned to storm the presidential palace on April 16, 2025. In an assault widely interpreted as an attempt to assassinate Traoré, the aim was to sow chaos and place Burkina Faso under foreign supervision, Sana declared, accusing the conspirators of seeking to incite a nationwide revolt. This marks the latest in a string of alleged destabilization efforts against Traoré's regime. Security analysts and regional observers have repeatedly speculated about assassination risks facing the junta leader, citing prior foiled plots and mounting internal dissent. While Sana did not explicitly confirm prior assassination plans, his reference to a direct assault on the presidency has fueled suspicions that eliminating Traoré was central to the plot. Sana alleged that the plotters operated from Ivory Coast, singling out to exiled former Burkinabe army officers as masterminds. The Ivorian government has yet to respond, though though Burkina Faso has frequently accused its southern neighbor of harboring -1 junta exiles. Authorities claim the conspirators recruited religious and traditional leaders to sway military loyalties and leak sensitive intelligence to jihadists to intensify attacks on civilians and security forces. Last week, Burkina security forces arrested several soldiers, including 2 officers, for alleged ties to the scheme. Burkina Faso remains gripped by a worsening security crisis, with jihadist groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS, controlling nearly 40% of the country. Despite Traoré's pledges to restore stability, including forging new military partnerships with Russian insurgent, attacks have persisted unabated. The Sahel region accounts for over half of global terrorism-related deaths, according to recent UN data. Traoré's rise to power in September 2022 marked Burkina Faso's second coup in 8 months, signaling the military's fraying patience with civilian governance amid rampant insecurity. Since then, his regime has faced multiple alleged coup attempts, including a destabilization plot foiled in November 2023, another assassination attempt on Burkina Faso's young President Ibrahim Traoré fails. Ibrahim Traoré assassination attempt. In a surprising turn of events, Burkina Faso's interim president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, finds himself at the center of political turbulence following a thwarted assassination attempt on his life. Since taking office in September 2022, Traoré has undertaken various initiatives, pledging swift action against jihadists, reclaiming land, and implementing anti-corruption programs as he courts Russia, distances himself from France, and successfully navigates the difficult transition to civilian government. However, some people fight to see that Captain Ibrahim Traoré is not at the forefront in Burkina Faso. The failed assassination plot against Traoré unfolded with Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, allegedly identified as the mastermind. Damiba, who briefly served as interim president before Traoré's coup, orchestrated a full plan to detonate an explosion within the presidential residence. This incident adds to Burkina Faso's long history of political instability, marked by coup attempts and power conflicts. The aftermath of the attempted assassination has exposed underlying tensions within Burkina Faso's military ranks. In September, 4 military commanders were arrested on coup-related charges, raising questions about dissatisfaction with Traoré's leadership. The perpetrators, seemingly backed by external forces, pose a challenge to Traoré's stability. Ibrahim Traoré assassination attempt. The failed attempt discloses the hurdles Traoré faces not only from external enemies but also from internal ones. But as days pass, Traoré solidifies more alliances, making it increasingly difficult for his detractors to impact his position. Notably, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger signed a mutual defense pact in September 2023, aiming to collectively combat armed rebellion or external threats. Therefore, it is said that anyone trying to unseat Ibrahim Traoré would also have presidents of Niger and Mali to combat, as well as Vladimir Putin, whom the interim president has an alliance with. Some speculate that foreign interests, particularly from Western countries such as France, may be involved in the turmoil, as Burkina Faso, rich in natural resources such as gold, zinc, copper, and more, poses an economic opportunity for external powers. But Traoré's commitment to national development and his refusal to align with certain foreign interests might explain the alleged attempts to remove him from power. Others argue that recent coup attempts against Traoré stem from his reversal of promises of fair elections and a perceived failure to address security issues in Burkina Faso within the promised timeframe. While critics highlight these shortcomings, others acknowledge Traoré's accomplishments in a short time, but attribute the recurring coup attempts to a lack of unity in the African continent. According to the spokesman of Burkina Faso, the coup attempt was foiled, and the alleged coup plotters were arrested. This would be the 4th coup attempt authorities in Burkina Faso have claimed to have thwarted since Captain Ibrahim Traoré took power in September 2022. Thwarted coup and assassination plot. December 2023. Military leaders thwarted a coup attempt aimed at Traoré, although specific details about the assassination plot were not made public. $5 million offered to Traoré's guards. 2025 asterisk. A foreign-backed network allegedly offered $5 million to Traoré's security guards to assassinate him. However, the guards refused the bribe and alerted national intelligence authorities. Attempt involving Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba. Damiba, Traoré's predecessor, allegedly orchestrated a full plan to detonate an explosion within the presidential residence. Explosive device discovery. An explosive device was discovered near a convoy route Traoré was scheduled to take, although authorities dismissed it as an abandoned device with no confirmed link to any specific threat. April 5, 2025 attempt. Reports emerged of another assassination attempt against Traoré, marking the 18th such incident during his tenure. Details surrounding this attempt remain scarce. April 23, 2025 attempt. Traoré survived another assassination attempt, with reports suggesting rising political friction in the Sahel region may have contributed to the incident. However, no official statement has been released, and full details remain unclear. It's worth noting that the exact details and dates of all 18 attempts are not publicly available due to official secrecy and limited information. These reported incidents highlight the challenges Traoré faces in maintaining stability and security in Burkina Faso. The junta has moved to assert itself, expelling French forces and joining Mali and Niger in exiting the West African bloc, a coups to form the Russia-aligned alliance of Sahel states. Critics argue the shift has further destabilized the region, while Traoré's government insists it seeks sovereign solutions to the crisis. For now, Traoré retains power, but the shadows of coups and assassination attempts loom large. The call is for Africans to collaborate and overcome historical conflicts to build a more peaceful and united continent.